Hi everyone and welcome to this new series of webinars. So today we'll have a session dedicated to test automation. We'll first start by a brief introduction of the team and the company. Then I will share with you the golden rules when it comes to automate your test. And then we'll do a demo of creating a new test, automating it, and integrating this test as part of the CI, the continuous integration process. Now, a few words about the team. I'm Laurent, the product manager of Hiptest, and I will run this session together with Vincent. Vincent is senior developer, is the main contributor of Hiptest Publisher, which is an open source application that you will see during the demo. And Vincent will do the demo of automating a test for a coffee machine application. So yes, during this webinar, we'll all drink virtual coffee. So now, what's Hiptest? For those of you who are not familiar with our company and platform, Hiptest is a testing platform designed for agile teams where you will create, manage and automate your tests in real time. But Hiptest is also a BDD, behavior-driven development framework, so we wanted to bring the best of the two worlds inside one platform. Now let's have a look at the way we do testing at Hiptest. First, Hiptest is a DevOps team. So it means that inside the product team, we have product management. So myself, we have developers, testers, DevOps also, because we do not care just about developing features, but we want to deploy them in production, and we are accountable for this. So basically, the process is we develop the feature, the CI tool create the build, execute the test, and when everything goes well, it deploys the build in production. In average, we do 10 deployments a day. So it's, of course, small increments, but the experience has shown us that doing very small and very often deployments is much better than doing one deployment every 3 months or every 6 months, and one deployment where you change almost everything. So doing small deployments continuously is definitely a good practice. If we look at the test pyramid, so we have approximately 2,800 unit tests. We do TDD, and they are, of course, developed, maintained by the developers. And for Hiptest platform, we have around 800 integration and acceptance tests. These tests are maintained within Hiptest. And of course, because we do continuous deployment, we don't have time to run manually the scripts, so everything is automated. We automate 100% of the scripts. It doesn't mean that we automate all of testing. We also do exploratory testing for the new features. So basically, the process is we have a story for a new feature. We start by defining the acceptance test using Hiptest. So we define with this acceptance test the boundaries of the feature. Then the developer develop the feature, make sure that all these acceptance tests do pass. And once it's deployed in production, it's only available for Hiptest team. So we can start do exploratory testing in production. And when the feature is okay, we can make it available for everyone, all the users. And of course, because we are accountable for a working software in production, we also monitor and test in real time on the production. So this is just a quick overview of our testing process. Now let's start with the key learning when it comes to do test automation. So the first thing is automation is not a silver bullet. I mean, even if it's a very hot topic, we see more and more people willing to automate the test. Test automation is not everything. And my favorite definition of testing is scripting plus exploring. So testing is not just about scripts being executed automatically. It's much more than that, because before executing your test, you have to write them. And writing good scenarios requires business knowledge, requires critical thinking. And this is where usually testers are very good at. So that's the value of testers. And then you have, as I said, exploratory testing. It's also a very important part of testing process. It's an important part of our own process, and it's also a very good way to support the development practice. So just keep in mind that testing is not just automation. So my first feedback about test automation is that it's not about return on investment, but it's about velocity. The reason why you may want to use automation is not to save cost. Usually when you start automation with this goal in mind, it's a failure. We want to use automation because with agile process, with continuous deployment practices, the cycles are compressed, so we need to go faster, and we have a velocity issue when we execute tests manually. This is the main reason why you should start with automation. I will just share with you how expensive test automation can be. One of our customers, Parkion, they are a leader in the e-transaction industry for the transportation sector. And they have on one of their projects 6,000 automated tests in BDD, so using the Gherkin syntax given when then. They execute all these tests so automatically, part of them being executed at the GUI level, but the biggest part is executed at the API level. But for some of those tests, so dozens of tests, are executed using a robot that introduces the card in the machine and do the transaction, press the key, and so on. So it was very, very expensive for them to build this infrastructure, but it was worth the investment because they wanted to have the right velocity for the continuous deployment process. So the reason why we want to do automation is velocity. It's not about cost. The second thing that may seem obvious for some of you, but this is really an old school anti-pattern we continue to see pretty commonly. I've never had a positive experience with just recording and doing playback of a script. Usually these scripts tend to be unreliable over time. If you use Selenium's IDE, you can record and use script, and it can help you to identify some objects in your applications. But then what you should do is export those scripts in language like Java, Ruby, C#, and the developers will take care of maintenance and evolutions. This way you will be able to scale. As a consequence, if you want to start and use automation, you should have the right skills. You should have developers inside the team. I got basically two simple rules for this. You should only work on test automation if you have the skills to work on the production code, and you should work on the production code only if you have the skills to work on test automation. The developers who know the application, they are the right person who can work and develop what we call the test fixture. We'll see that later. And if you don't have these development skills, you will not be able to build something that's really scale and is maintainable. The fourth rules, which is maybe the most important one, is the way you build your test framework. So when you look at the test frameworks that scales and are maintainable over times, they all share the same principles. This is a layered approach. So if we look at these different layers, you will have the business layer and the technical layer. At the business layer level, so you have the test, and all these tests use steps, reusable steps, so the same steps can be reused across multiple scenarios. This is what is usually named keywords or action words. So we define these business entities, the action words, that you can reuse across multiple scenarios. These action words, these steps define your business terminology. So this is at the business layer. Once you have a good design of your test, then you will have to work on your infrastructure, technical layer. You will have for every step to develop your test fixtures. You can use pattern like page object that enable you to reuse some code among all these test fixtures. And then these test fixtures can call the application or at the API level or at the GUI level using, for example, Selenium WebDriver. And you can call directly the application, or sometimes You can use mockup to simulate part of the applications. And the last thing that's very, very important, every single test that you define should tell a story about your application. Sometimes we have the question, what are the right tests to automate? The very first question is, why did you spend time on designing this test? So if you don't understand just by reading the test, what's the intent of the test, then it means you have a problem. Maybe your test is not relevant. So it's not just should I automate it, but should I keep and continue to maintain this test? So make sure all your tests tell a story about the applications. They are a good support to the conversation between the product manager, the developer, the tester, and you should refactor your test continuously. There is no difference between your code and your test. If you want them to be maintainable, if you want your framework to scale, either the infrastructure or the test at the business level, then you should refactor them. Now we'll see the full stack, and I will give the role to Vincent. So, Vincent, up to you.
Okay, thanks, Laurent. Hi, everyone. So I'm going to do the demo about the automation. So I'm going to do a full demo, so from a new scenario in Hiptest to its automation and the fact that it's played by the CI tool. In this demo, I'll play different roles like a product owner or a developer or even the CI server. So I'll try to make it clear who I am during the demo. This demo will be done in 5 steps. So it's more or less always the steps you have when you implement a new scenario. So the first one will be the one done by the product owner, so the creation of scenario. Then the developer will handle the second and third part, so getting some code and implementing it. We'll also do the fourth step, which is really quick because it's just adding a scenario to a test run in Hiptest, and the CI do the last part. So I'll try to come back to this slide often enough so you know where we are exactly. So during this demo, I'm going to use this project, which is called Coffee Machine. It's a project we use to test our code publisher. So it describes an automated espresso coffee machine. You know, the one that makes really good coffee, but also complains most of the time because, you need lots and lots of maintenance, and you need to fill all the tanks, like the water, like the beans, like you need to empty the grounds, etc., etc. So it's really good coffee when you're able to have one. So we already have a few scenarios that describe that, like the fact you need to fill the water tank, you need to fill the beans tank, and stuff like that. Anyway, so let's start really the demo showing the full process. So I'm going to play the product owner right now. So I go to Jira and I see that, a guy from the marketing added a new issue in Jira saying, okay, there's this feature we need, and that's the fact that after a while you need to do some descaling of the coffee machine. So what I'm going to do is to create a new scenario describing that. So I already made a maintenance folder for that. So descaling is needed after some times. So it uses the same name but in Jira. And just to make it clear, I'm going to copy paste this BDD style description. So this way it's even clearer. So what is going to be shown in the test? So basically I'm going to to start the coffee machine, take 500 coffees, and I should get a message saying, okay, you need to descale. And there will also be another thing. It's on this coffee machine you've got a maintenance light that blinks to say to the user, do some maintenance. So let's start to write this. So given the fact that the coffee machine is started. Okay, so just one quick word about the action words, which are a key concept in Hiptest. The action words are the little bricks that will compose your scenarios, and they have two main interests. The first one is that they will help you build a consistent business terminology, so you don't end up with three ways to say the same thing in different tests, like, I don't know, I login or I sign in, for example. Uh, so as you can see with the auto completion, when you start typing something in your scenarios, you'll have the existing action word proposed. So this way, you'll use the same terminology than you used before or one of your colleagues used before. And the second really important thing is that each action word is a single point of maintenance. So due to the refactoring capabilities of Hiptest, if you modify one action word, for example, you create a new parameter or you simply change the wording, if you update this action word, you will impact all the scenarios that use it. So you don't have to, let's say, update 100 scenarios just to reflect one change in your application. You just update the action word describing the updated feature, and all the scenarios using it will be updated live. So then I'll take 500 coffees. So as you can see, we already have an action word to take n coffees. The problem is I can't use this one exactly because it just takes the coffee, and as I said, there will be errors while I take those 500 coffees. Like, I need to put some more water, I will have to put some more beans and stuff like that. So what I'm going to do is create a new action word. So I take 500 coffees and I handle the tanks. So it's a bit generic to mean the water and the bean tanks, but it's going to be good. So when I do that, then the maintenance light should blink. So there's no test about that yet. So of course the action word needs to be created, and as I said, there is a message. This scaling required should be displayed. So I've done the first step of the process, so creating the scenario. I'll just do one quick thing just before, is linking this scenario to the Jira issue that describes it. So it's really that simple. It's drag and drop here. So this way, from Jira, I will be able to open the test in Hiptest, or the scenario, and from Hiptest, if I go back to the scenario, I will be able to open the Jira issue. So we've got two ways to open the data. So as I said, I finished the first step. Now I'm going to play the role of a developer, or if you really have big team, someone responsible for the test automation. So let's say I'm a developer. So I won't do the part really developing the feature. It's already been done and it's not really the topic of this demo. So what I want to do now is get some executable code from this scenario. So inside Hiptest, you can see here, we can generate code in various languages and frameworks. So simply clicking on one of those icons will give me some some automated ready code. But I already have some tests automated, so I won't use that. I'm going to use the command line version of this service, which is called Hiptest Publisher. So Hiptest Publisher works with a configuration file that can be downloaded from here. For example, for this demo, I'm going to do some JavaScript and Mocha. So I could simply click this link and I get a configuration file. Of course, that was already done. So if we go to Sublime Text, we can see our config file that says, okay, I'm using this project from Hiptest. I'm using JavaScript and Mocha and some other configuration that is not really important here. So what I'm going to do now is regenerate the executable tests from the project. So Hiptest publisher minus mocha.conf, and I'll say, okay, export only the test because I don't want to override all the action words that have already been implemented. Okay, so now if I go to the tests and I open this file, I can see that the test about descaling is available here. So let's see what happens if I run the test. I'm pretty sure it's going to fail. Oh, it failed. Yeah, of course, I didn't do anything about the automation for the descaling, so that explains why it didn't work. What I'm going to do now is, see if there is new action words in this scenario and implement them. So for that, I can once again use Hiptest Publisher. And I'll ask him the diff for the action word since last time I did some automation. So what I can see now is that, two new action words have been created. So I take X coffees and handle the tanks, and the maintenance light, should blink. So once again, Hiptest Publisher can help me because it can generate for me the skeleton for this code, for this action words. So I simply have to copy paste that to my list of action words. And do the implementation. I'll be frank, I have a cheat sheet for the implementation, so it avoids stupid mistakes. So my first one and my second one. So of course it takes a bit more time in the real life, but that was easier to do a cheat sheet to get the demo running fast. So now, normally, if I run the test, everything works fine. Woohoo, it worked. So now we can see that the descaling test has passed. So if I go back here, so I've done those two steps, which are really, really close. So putting the code, so that was the first command saying update the tests, and give me the skeleton for the action word, and the implementation, that's the part where I cheated and used simply copy paste. So from a developer point of view, I'm already almost done now. So I fetched the code and I updated the action words. So what I'm going to do now is commit those changes so I can share it with the rest of the team. One last thing before. So I'm going to use Hiptest Publisher again. And I'm going to update the file that describes the implemented action words. So this way, next time a colleague of mine or whoever, use Hiptest Publisher, the two newly created action word won't be displayed when making the diff. So now I should commit and push those changes. I won't do it because, it's a demo, but the idea is there. So my code is ready for the automation. I have just one last thing to do as a developer is say that this scenario is ready to be run by the CI. So let's open it again. We have a test run dedicated to the CI. So I'm adding it right now. And if I open the test run, I can see so the last status were all green, except for this new test because yeah, the CI tool hasn't kicked in yet. So let's play the third role of this demo. So now I'm going to act as the CI tool. So I saw that there is a new change committed by the developer just before, and I'm going to run all the tests as a CI tool. For this project, usually we use Travis CI, but depending on the load of the server, it can take up to 10 or 15 minutes for a build to start. So it won't really be nice for you to wait that long to see the CI run. So I'm just going to play the CI. So here we've got the configuration for the CI tool. So it's Travis. So to explain briefly the process, just before running the test, it uses Hiptest Publisher to fetch the test from the test run. So this way we don't play tests that are being written right now by the product manager or whatever. We only play the tests that have been added to the CI test run, so the ones we know that are ready and automated. So let's do it. So I'm just copy pasting that. So now I should update the test. Then, well, of course, we run the test, which is always good for a CI tool. So there won't be any output this time because we put that in a XML file for the report. And I'm going to push the results back to Hiptest. And now if we go back to the to the test run dedicated to the CI, we can see that the descaling test is now green. So that was the fifth step in this process. So let the CI do its job. One last nice thing, if we open this test, what we can see is that as it was based from a test run, from a scenario that was linked to a Jira issue, we also have the link to the Jira issue directly from the test in the test run. So if I click there now, I should have my Jira issue opened, and now I can see directly from Jira the status in the CI tool. And yeah, the loop is done, so now all we have to do is wait for a new feature and start this again. So creating scenario, implementing the stuff, and let the CI run the test.
Okay, thanks Vincent for the demo, and thanks everyone for your time. If you want to give a try to Hiptest, it's as simple as going to the site hiptest.net and sign up. It just takes a couple of seconds. Thanks again. Have a great time. Bye bye.